Welcome to the 10th episode of Conscious Awakening. Today I have Carly Chang. She is a wellness advocate because she loves to do yoga. She's a yoga teacher, student of yoga. She's a massage therapist, health coach, etc., etc. But I've actually known yoga. I've actually known Carly since 6th grade. Fun fact, we were in an orchestra together. And our paths somehow crossed again, and we were co-workers, but that's another story.
Another lifetime.
Yeah, in another lifetime. So she definitely wanted to talk more about yoga, because I haven't talked about that yet on this podcast. So let's just get your background. How did you start getting into yoga?
So like most people, when I thought of yoga initially, I thought, just some type of exercise that I could do to become more flexible. Mm-hmm. I've always been more of like an athlete, like the strength component, things like that have always come pretty easy to me. But flexibility is always something that's like eluded me. So I've always been interested by yoga in that aspect, but when I was about 18 or 19, I really kind of started going to classes pretty regularly at like LVAC, which is, one of the local gyms we have here. And I found this instructor. Her name's Marissa, and I kind of just fell in love with her class. And I really liked that her type of yoga wasn't like the sit still and be calm and just like be comfortable sitting or whatever. It was like really kind of difficult for me. It was very much like a strength building practice, but also helped me to increase my flexibility. I didn't know it at the time, but that style of yoga that she teaches is Ashtanga based, which is what I teach now. So that's how I kind of got introduced to it. I didn't even know that it was like kind of a more traditional form of yoga. And I started working with Marissa one-on-one when I kind of like realized like, oh, I really am into this. Mm-hmm. And I also suffered really badly with anxiety pretty much all through high school and college. And yoga was just one of those things that helped me kind of manage my anxiety. I was very stressed, like I'm sure you remember those days as science majors.
Yeah, bio majors.
Yeah. So I was always stressed over school and things like that, and pretty much I did yoga regularly to kind of keep me sane. And then, so I guess 19 is when I started, and like 3 or 4 years after that, after working with my teacher kind of one-on-one for so long, she was like, you should do yoga teacher training. And I was like kind of really hesitant at first, and honestly even through my yoga teacher training and after the fact, I was still really hesitant about being a yoga teacher because as much as I love yoga and love doing yoga and like what it did for me, I didn't feel kind of qualified or like ready to be a teacher to share it with other people. And I think that still applies like even now. But that's, with her kind of persuasion, I did the yoga teacher training. So I did it in a more traditional format. So traditionally, you work with your mentor or your guru like one-on-one, and over a course of time, they teach you about yoga, and eventually then you are like qualified to share it with other people. Nowadays they have Yoga Alliance, which kind of like regulates better, what qualifies you as a teacher, essentially. Yeah. It was kind of just put in place to help, make sure what, like the information you're getting is quality, and like not just anybody can be a yoga teacher and that type of thing. Yeah. So I think it's necessary, but also like has its like caveats or whatever. But yeah, so I did the yoga teacher training with my teacher one-on-one over like 18 months.
Oh, wow.
So I'm 200 hours certified. I'm very slowly working on my 300 hour, but I am certified through Yoga Alliance, and I've been teaching now actually at Sin City Yoga where we are for a couple years, and I really love it. But that's kind of how I discovered yoga and how I got into it and how I got, became a teacher, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of transition and say that we are at Sun City Yoga, which is where you teach. It's located downtown on Main Street, so if you're ever in the area, come do yoga with Carly. You do it on Sundays, right?
So yeah, I teach Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m.
I was totally off.
No, and I do teach on Sundays as well at noon. So
Yay.
I'm here 3 days a week. And there's lots of other classes. So I teach mostly Ashtanga, which maybe we'll talk a little bit more about. But there's all different types of yoga here. We have like restorative.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, so what are the different types of yoga?
Okay, so here we have restorative, we have yin. There's like a huge umbrella term called vinyasa. And what else do we have? We have like, power yoga, and then there's like Ashtanga and some other things. But there's a bunch of different types of yoga, so I'm not even entirely sure that I know all the different varieties.
It's all good.
But kind of the two main lineages are Ashtanga and Hatha. And then kind of everything else stems from those two. But essentially, like Ashtanga, what I teach is kind of, again, more of that, like you get both the strength building component and the flexibility. Whereas like restorative is kind of a type of yoga where you make yourself comfortable. So you use props like these that we're sitting on, and these blankets and blocks and things like that to essentially get into a posture to make yourself like as comfortable as you can be, and then just relax into it. Yin is kind of similar, but it's very much longer hold. So you're holding a single posture for like upwards of 5 minutes plus. Whereas like in Ashtanga and like vinyasas, you're holding things for like maybe 5 breaths or something. And then, of course, power yoga is another like umbrella term that's for people who want like more of a workout. But yeah, those are kind of the main ones. And vinyasa is actually a term that means pairing movement with breath. So it's a huge umbrella term that really any vinyasa class you go to, I can't really tell you what to expect, except, it's going to be different based on the teacher. There's usually music, and it's more kind of flowy, kind of more dance-like, I would say. It's not really dance-like, but
Kind of more upbeat.
Yeah, you have like smoother transitions, and maybe it looks prettier to somebody from the outside.
Yeah. There's also Bikram Yoga, I think. Is that the hot yoga?
Oh yeah. So Bikram, I believe, is actually a style based off of the Ashtanga sequence. So I believe the founder injured his knee. He was like a professional power lifter, some type of athlete, but he injured himself, and he kind of discovered Ashtanga, which is what I do and I teach, but he modified it, and he incorporates the heated room. So heated room and I think like high humidity. That's an interesting concept actually, because in like Ashtanga and other forms of yoga, you don't have the external heat. You work on building like this internal heat that helps you become more flexible. It helps to transform you, that type of thing. And kind of the heated yoga or hot yoga kind of has the different approach where you heat the external environment to help aid you in becoming more flexible and to kind of facilitate greater range of movement, things like that.
Yeah, because the heat essentially relaxes your muscles and allows you to...
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit biased in that I don't like hot yoga, and I don't really think it's a great idea, because, when you're externally manipulating the body, sometimes you can go into ranges of movement that are not necessarily like safe or accessible for you on a regular basis. Personally, I've tried Bikram, and I actually had an instructor who injured me.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I was pretty flexible at the time, like going into an intro class or whatever, and most of the time instructors can tell like, oh, who's a beginner and who's a little bit more advanced or knows what they're doing. And so I think that's what he saw in me, and like went over and was like, oh, you can go deeper into this. And he literally like pushed me down, and it popped something in my knee, and it hasn't quite been the same since. But that's just more of like a, not so much like Bikram is bad. It's more like that could happen with any instructor if they're not careful and things like that. But again, I'm not a huge fan of the external heated environment, because I think you should focus more on the internal heating. And like in my class, in Ashtanga specifically, you focus on breathing, really like fundamental, working on your Ujjayi breath, which is, maybe you've heard that term, it's a victorious breath. It's the breathing with sound, and that makes you really warm.
Sorry.
Oops.
My bad.
It's all good. I should probably do that, but I don't have my phone here, so hopefully it doesn't go off.
That happened last time too. Sorry guys, my phone went off.
It's all good.
But yeah, is the Ujjayi breath the same? It's not the same as the lion's breath, right? Where you go like.
So that's a different technique.
It is.
Yeah, Ujjayi breath is essentially, like when I teach, I explain it as like the constricting of the back of the throat. So it's when you create this foggy sound, like when you clean your glasses or your sunglasses.
I do that, yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, so it's really kind of loud, and it serves two purposes. One, to heat the body, and the second, to serve kind of as like an audible reminder of the breath. So that like even when you're moving and things like that, you're keeping track of your breath and hopefully moving with it and things like that.
In a sense, when you do, like going back to focusing on your breath, is that essentially also a form of meditation to some people, like just in general, or maybe to some people? Or
Oh, totally. So it's funny because yoga is actually like, the idea of yoga that we have like in Western society is this like physical workout, when in reality, like yoga is kind of like a lifestyle, and it's also, well, it is definitely a lifestyle, but it's kind of like a teaching or a way of teaching people to kind of get control of their mind, their body, so that they can kind of reach enlightenment. It's not religious, although some people tie like religion to it. It's not in that aspect, but so what we know as yoga here, like kind of what we've been talking about, is actually called asana, which is the physical practice of yoga. So the shapes that you see, like down dog, child's pose, those are all asanas, or postures. And so another component of yoga is actually like meditation and control over the mind, and its activity. And in the Yoga Sutras, kind of they talk about how you get control over your mind and things like that is through getting control over your body. So that's why they have like the asanas as a way to kind of teach you to get control over the body so that you can then get control over the mind. But for a lot of people, you know, physical moving, like in the asana practice, is meditative. But you can also get it like from things like knitting or crocheting. I hear a lot of times people, you know, go into like a meditative state.
No, that makes sense.
So it doesn't have to be the asana practice to get that meditative mindset. But that's one tool to get to that point.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because I remember when I did, I haven't done yoga in a while, but when I did do yoga, and even when like I used to, when Carly was teaching and trying to get her license, well, is it called license? Certification. Certification. We were like doing yoga in the park.
Yeah, I'm probably going to bring those back. I occasionally do free sessions in the park just to kind of share yoga with people. But
yeah, and then if you've never done yoga before and you tell yourself, oh, I don't want to pay for a class, blah, 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 there are outlets out there like Carly who does do it and show it for free. Okay, some occasion. But come take a class with her in City Yoga.
Yeah. I'm here more often, for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the weather's kind of not that great right now, so you can't really be at the park right now.
I can't believe how much it's been raining. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like it's beginning of February. Can you believe it's already February? It's
insane. Yeah, crazy.
So I know you also wanted to talk about gut health, and I don't really know anything about gut health. So what exactly do you want to...
What do I want to talk about?
Sorry, my connection was lost for a second, so I was like, oh my god, is my GoPro okay? No, go ahead.
All right. So the reason why I wanted to talk about gut health is more to kind of bring it back to the anxiety thing that we talked about and kind of like how I got into yoga. And I like to tell people, you know, yoga is the first tool that I found essentially to help me with my anxiety. But it definitely didn't cure me of my anxiety, because I mean, it's great. I definitely recommend yoga. Everybody should do more yoga.
Oh, yes.
But, you know, I think, you know, it's just one kind of pillar of things that you need to kind of put in place so that you have like a healthy overall like body, mind, spirit type thing. And a lot of people don't realize that the gut health is like completely linked to, you know, physical health and mental health, emotional health, all that stuff. And it's funny because when I started getting really into yoga, you know, I naturally just started eating better as like a side effect of, you know, moving more and being kind of more in tune with my body. And that kind of has put me on this path to like, you know, being a health coach and like helping people kind of start the journey that I started many years ago and, you know, find their way and navigate and that type of thing. But essentially what you feed your body is like what you're feeding, you know, it's your fuel. Yeah, it's fuel for your soul too. So it's important to, you know, eat clean and things like that. And I think the more active you are, it just kind of comes naturally. Especially like when you're working out or moving like 5-6 days a week, it's like when you eat kind of crappy food, like you feel it when you go to work out the next day.
Oh, yeah.
And I know over the years, like I don't really drink alcohol much anymore, but like the days when I would occasionally partake and then I'd go and do yoga the next day, like I would sweat like literally the alcohol out, and like sometimes you could smell it. And like sometimes when I have students and stuff like that, like I can tell when they've been drinking or something, because like you can smell it.
Oh, that's insane.
So it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
I definitely think nutrition and like physical health is you know, intrinsically linked.
Oh, yeah.
But the gut is something people don't really think about. Like you actually have more like emotion bodies in your gut than in your brain. So
Yeah.
in Eastern medicine, they talk about the gut as the second brain. So a lot of, you know, I think it's kind of, it's seems common, or like maybe common knowledge that like, you know, what you eat affects how you feel.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like when you think about it that way, it's like, oh yeah, it is kind of my second brain. But
When you talked about gut health, the first thing I thought of is kombucha. It's like kind of like the fad that's going on right now. But like, I try to have kombucha like every morning, because I heard that when you have it before you eat, that's when your gut is empty, that's like the best time for it to kind of clear out everything that you had the day before. Am I correct? Or I don't know, that's what I researched.
I'm not entirely sure about the science of that, but it does have probiotics, which are good for your gut health. So essentially that's like healthy bacteria that you're putting in your stomach to keep the good bacteria in your stomach happy. Like, you know, most of them don't know, but I studied biology in college, and actually microbiology was my major. So I spent a lot of time, you know, working with microbes and things like that. And it's crazy how much we don't know about like microbes in general. But one of the craziest things that I learned in undergrad was that like we actually have more microbial cells in our body than we have human cells. So kind of when you think about that.
What's the difference?
So, you know, like microbial cells are just so much smaller. But per cell count, we have way more microbial cells in our body than human cells. So when you think of that, it's kind of like, are we a human, you know, with bacteria living in us, or are we like a human house for bacteria?
Bacteria. Oh my God, that's crazy.
But yeah, so probiotics like kombucha are really good for like essentially feeding your healthy or your happy and your good bacteria and keeping them happy and healthy so that you don't get sick. They don't get like taken out by the bad guys. Things like that.
No, I feel like I still don't fully understand kombucha, because there is the fad going on of like a lot of people just drinking kombucha because
I don't like the stuff personally.
Oh, you don't like kombucha?
Yeah.
I only drink a specific brand because they have good flavors, but their sugar level is also pretty low.
Yeah, it's funny, we had some here on tap for a while, and I actually like that one. I forget the brand, so don't quote me on it. But there are some brands that do taste better than others. I think it's important to look at sugar content as well, because, you know, when you're buying stuff like at the grocery store, you know, like, oh, kombucha, you think healthy, but then you look at like the sugar content, and it's like
some
off
there's
the
like
charts.
30 grams of sugar, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, so that's not healthy.
Yeah, I drink Healthade, not sponsored. I drink Healthade because their sugar yeah, I know, sponsor me. Their sugar content's probably like around 12 to 16, which it still seems like a lot, but it's natural sugars from what I know. It's not like added sugars. So, yeah, go to check out Healthade.
Yeah, I think natural sugars are definitely what you want to look for, just like, you know, in fruits and things like that. But flavors and things like that are usually synthetic. So it's important to look at what you're eating and what you're putting in your body, which is also, you know, that's actually a form of yoga, or part of yoga, is like taking care of your whole being. So like, we did talk about like the meditation part. There's also what's called pranayama, which is like breath work exercises.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of what we talked about a little bit with like the ujjayi breath. That's part of the pranayama, the lion's breath that you mentioned. And there's like a bunch of other techniques that you can learn to like master, and it's pretty crazy. I only know a handful, honestly, other than the ones that like are in the Ashtanga, like yoga asana practice. But it's very involved.
It's crazy that there's just like a different language with yoga.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, whenever I heard the moves, like when I took my first yoga classes, I'm like, I don't know what the heck they're talking about. But so I have to see, but then it's when I have to see, but I don't have my glasses, so it's like harder for me.
I get it. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, but if you do have glasses, don't let it stop you. I mean,
Oh, for sure. So my glasses are huge. They're probably bigger than Rosemary's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I used, like, when I started, I wore my glasses. Like, it kind of sucked because they'd slide down and whatever, but I managed. And then nowadays I use contacts just for the sake of it. But I've definitely had days where I just like take my glasses off when I do it blind. But it's kind of funny that you say that, because like the language of yoga is Sanskrit, which does seem very foreign at first and like hard, like really hard. And I know, honestly, probably for the first 3 years of my practice, like I could understand maybe if people were saying it, but like I wouldn't be able to speak it or like, you know, like say what I was doing. Or like
confidently say it.
Right. Yeah. So like if somebody told me a pose, I'd be like, oh, it's this one, and I could show them. So it was kind of just that association of the word with the posture. And I really try to emphasize that with my students. Like, I get that they have no idea what I'm saying, but like I just say it over and over and over again, hoping that, you know, it'll
click. Yeah, it'll click.
And it wasn't really until I did my yoga teacher training and like actually started teaching yoga that I was like, oh snap, like I should probably like really know these.
Yeah.
But even now, like sometimes I get them mixed up, and because it is another language, and like the more you use it, the easier it gets. But like if you don't use it for a while, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show you this. Obviously your viewers can't see.
Oh no, I can punch in.
Okay.
It's 4K.
Oh, okay, cool. So this is the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali in kind of its Sanskrit form, and it's kind of interesting. Like, I love language, and I know you also like learning like Japanese and stuff like that. So if you look at it, it's very like precise, and so Sanskrit.
Wait, show it to the camera.
Sanskrit is supposed to be like it's supposed to be like the perfect language, like very precise and like to the point. There's no like flourish to it. So this is the entire Yoga Sutra in this tiny little booklet.
Can I see?
Yeah, go for it. So that was paired with this book. So this is the translation of that book.
Oh, look at you, all prepared with your props.
Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting, but so this tiny little thing gets translated into this entire book. So they break it down into the Sanskrit, so like the actual Sanskrit there, and then like I forget what it's called. It's like the romanization, so like the way that we can read it and interpret it, so like how we would sound it out, so something like this.
So wait, do you have Roman numeral 215?
Yep, 215.
215. Wow, this is the first time I think I've ever seen Sanskrit.
Yeah, so 215, if you look wherever you pointed. So this top line,
Yeah.
that's Yoga Sutra 215, which is the same line here. And then it breaks it down into the romanization, so kind of how we would read it. And then it breaks down like the actual translation word by word. And then like this is the like interpretation of it.
Oh, wow. That's insane.
So this is a really great book.
It's crazy that it's so much thicker.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted. Like, it's funny when you talked about the language of it, because it's definitely unique. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's its own component. But the fun thing about Sanskrit, though, is that it is kind of like universal. So if you were to go take a yoga class, like in France, where they only speak French, and you don't speak French, like you could probably go, especially to an Ashtanga class, like Mysore and stuff, they typically teach in, or they lead primary, things like that, they're called out in Sanskrit. So if you know the Sanskrit, then you can follow along like in another country, in another language, no problem.
That's so cool.
But yeah.
Have you ever taken yoga in another country?
Yeah, so I've actually done a couple yoga retreats. I did one in Thailand for a week. It was really fun. It was on the island of Koh Phangan. So I did that when I went backpacking for like a month.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember you did that.
Yep. But that was in English. But I did do another retreat in Costa Rica where they did do Spanish, which was kind of fun. When they did call out the Sanskrit and stuff like that, like I could follow along, but then you know other times I had to just kind of like look
around and be like,
what's
oh, okay, that's what they're doing.
yeah, I'm working on my Spanish, but it's definitely not fluent or anything.
Not there.
So.
Yeah, not yet.
But that's the thing, like yoga it's like a universal
Language,
practice.
yeah.
So Sanskrit is a universal like language of yoga. So if you know it and you can familiarize yourself with it, then it becomes easier when you go to other countries and things like that and take yoga. But like the movement is the same pretty much anywhere you go. So I think it's like dance. Like dancing is universal. Like you can go to a dance club somewhere and be fine. Like even if you don't know what the songs are saying or the bands are singing.
That
so
makes
it's kind of
sense.
like that.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. I know I really should get back into yoga.
Everybody needs more yoga.
So what do you have like any tips? I know like there are a lot of YouTube videos out there. I mean, I did her YouTube video actually.
I have a little one. So actually that's what I send to people like when they ask me like how do I get into yoga, or like I want to do yoga but I'm too scared to go to a studio or something like that. So first I would like to just say that going to a studio is your best bet. Most people in studios are super friendly and love having new people come that, you know, have never done yoga before. Like it's an honor that, you know, when people have never done yoga and they show up to my class, like I feel honored that they chose my class for whatever reason. And, you know, people are, like it helps to like read class descriptions. I will do that caveat. So if you're a beginner, obviously you don't want to go to like some super advanced yoga class because they are going to be moving at like a higher pace, like more advanced postures, things like that. But like in general, if you just show up to like a regular class or like a mixed level class, they're going to offer like modifications so that you can do the posture comfortably and safely, things like that. And of course, if you're really shy, maybe take an intro class, something like that. We have them here at Sun City, but most yoga studios do. But for somebody who wants to practice at home, like you're just a homebody or you're more comfortable at home, that's perfectly okay too. Rosemary helped me make a little video and I send that to people. It's just the Sun Salutations. And I say just the Sun Salutations, like that's some simple thing, but actually the Sun Salutations are like the preface or the beginning of the primary series for Ashtanga, or most Ashtanga practices, but in and of itself, it's like an entire workout, and it's an entire yoga practice. And it takes about maybe 15 minutes a day to do like 5 Sun Salutation A's and 5 Sun Salutation B's. But if you did that for the rest of your life, like you would be in great shape because it does, it gets like your heart pumping, a little bit of cardio. It helps you to kind of calm the mind, which is always important, connect to the breath. But it also does include things like back bends, chest openers, leg strengthening, arm strengthening, all that good stuff. It's obviously very mild, and it's only 15 minutes, but like I said, if you only did that, like if you did it every day for the rest of your life, you'd be in awesome shape.
Wait, so what's a sun salutation? Is obviously like
Yeah.
sun, like the sun?
Yeah, so Surya Namaskar is the Sanskrit. They have two forms, A and B, and essentially it's just like, it's kind of like a series of postures that you do. They were originally, I believe, intended to like literally salute the sun. So like thank the sun, which is our source of life, source of energy, you know, for its existence and for, you know, allowing us to be here. But again, I don't think it's religious. It was never intended to be like worshiping the sun, which a lot of people think. But it's more like a thank you to the sun for all that it does, in my opinion. Sorry, I forgot the microphone.
No, it's all good. Hold on, let me check something real quick. Okay, cool. We're still good.
All right. Cool. But it's just kind of like a series of movements. So pretty much any yoga class you go to is going to have some type or form of a sun salutation in it. The full variation is kind of what's taught in Ashtanga, but they have like modified forms. And you'd recognize it. Most people call them out either as sun salutation, sun A, sun B, shortened, or like the Sanskrit is Surya Namaskar. So.
Yeah, I remember you saying that in your voiceover.
Yeah.
She had to like come over and do a voiceover for her video.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I actually put that YouTube link in the description?
Yeah, you can put it down.
Cool.
I don't have it like public or whatever, just because kind of like what I talked about in the beginning, like I'm definitely like a student of yoga, and I do teach it. I've been teaching in a studio for a couple of years now, but like at the same time I feel like I don't know anything about yoga and like I'm not qualified to teach it. So I definitely like would love people to, if my video is helpful, like by all means share it. That's what I do with it. I just don't have it open to the public because I get nervous.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. No,
but that's
I remember.
more me. But yeah, it's just my intention with that video was to help people, you know, who asked me like, what can I do to have like a visual aid that they could follow, and also the verbal. Although I will admit it's a bit fast for people who are just starting, so maybe try to keep up with it, or maybe just kind of listen to what I'm saying and then move at your own pace.
Yeah, if it resonates with you, just work with it, go with it, go with the flow.
Always listen to your own body.
Yeah, listen to your gut and your intuition. Going back to your gut health.
Yeah.
Your gut needs to be healthy for you to listen to it.
But yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I don't recommend like eating junk food or drinking lots before doing yoga, that type of thing, but that just seems like common sense.
Yeah. Did you say like a day before or like a couple of days before? I mean, essentially you're not supposed to really eat junk food in general. But
oh, yeah. Well, that's true, but I see no harm in indulging every now and then.
Yeah. In
and
moderation.
also, drinking too. All things in moderation, and it's all about balance. I think, honestly, one of the hardest things for me to learn through yoga is balance. And, like, for a while there, I was very, like, serious about the practice, you know, really committed to doing 6 days a week and, like, living the yoga lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then I got so caught up in that it kind of became overwhelming, and like I was too hard on myself and all these things, which is like the opposite of what yoga is supposed to be, you know, teaching you. And I think that has to do with like our programming and like our cultural kind of like.
Yeah, but you had to go through that to learn to come back to your balance.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So if you had like one advice for somebody who's starting, or like who has the knowledge of yoga but hasn't really applied it, do you have like, what's your one advice?
So my advice would probably be to just get out of your head and do the work. That's, you know, easier said than done. It's something I struggle with all the time.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but we spend so much time thinking about things when, you know, that's just like our ego talking, protecting us or getting in our way, what have you. But if you really want to, better yourself, maybe eventually reach enlightenment, things like that, then just start, really. Wherever you're at is fine. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah. And then, like, there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, no, I'm not flexible. Blah,
I love
blah.
that. Yeah, I'm not flexible either. But seriously, I'm not flexible. So I love hearing that, because when people tell me, like, oh, I'm not flexible, like, I can't do yoga, the whole reason of doing yoga asana, or the physical practice, is to become more flexible in both body and mind. So, it's not about the physical. It's not about what you look like. Instagram is really good about showing us really beautiful postures done by very flexible, bendy people.
Yeah.
And, I think that's great if it exposes and inspires somebody to then, want to start doing the work themselves. But having said that, I think that, like with anything on social media, that's just like a curated moment.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know how long that person was holding that posture. You don't know what it took them to get to that point in their practice. A lot of people are actually, naturally more flexible than others. A lot of people maybe are more open in the hips, but not so much in the shoulders. So what might come easily for one person might be really difficult for somebody else, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot in my students. So, as in life, as in yoga, like, comparison serves no purpose.
Yeah.
Like, your journey is your own, your body is your own, and you kind of have to just listen to your own body and respect it, and, like, enjoy your journey, because it's different. I've been doing yoga now since I was like 19. I'm 26 or something.
Yay.
So a few years under my belt, and some things that I still struggle with. My students, I'm teaching them how to do it, and like some of them have surpassed me, and I'm like, you know what, that's great.
Yeah, it's like, you're cool.
And if I got caught up in that and like, oh, why am I teaching if like these people are better than me, things like that, it doesn't serve it doesn't serve anybody. It certainly doesn't serve me. I actually had somebody who was like, oh, well, you teach yoga, like, you must be super flexible. And I'm like,
oh, there's that stereotype.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, actually, no. And he's like, well, shouldn't you be able to do all the postures if you're teaching them? And I think that's a valid question. I think my knowledge of the postures allows me to teach them to people and assist them in the
proper way.
Exactly. Yeah. But I definitely know my own limitations and like what is helpful for people, and also know when it's out of my league. So I will then, like send them to my teacher or to another teacher who maybe, has more success or knows more about a certain thing than I do. Because I definitely don't know everything, and I'm not an expert in everything. So I don't claim to be, and I think that's how most people should approach their practice.
The humbling. You gotta be humble about it.
Well, it's also safer that way. You don't want to injure yourself.
Yeah, that's true too. Are there any like other stereotypes that you hear about, like being a yoga teacher?
I don't. So there's probably too many to think of, but I think the whole like yoga hippie stereotype is interesting. Like the whole kombucha fad and like chia bowls or healthy eating.
The acai bowls.
I think those are all great things. And I think it comes when you're kind of more in tune with your body, which is what yoga helps you to achieve. There's definitely that fad component with yoga in general that's a very like Western thing, and also thanks to social media. But it's also prevalent like in yoga schools, like hammock yoga, like that's fun, but like you have to
and like the goat yoga and all that.
Like those things, they're not, I would consider those more like fads. Like,
just like more like events.
It's honestly more like just like a fitness fad than it is yoga.
Like what yoga truly is.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's truly like a lifestyle. It's like working on yourself to better yourself. And as cute as goats are, or kittens, like, you know, I wouldn't want them in my way while I'm doing yoga.
Yeah. I was like, how does that even work? Like goats are I'm like seeing videos of goats climbing on people. I'm like, how are you supposed to do your pose?
I haven't personally done it, but from everybody who I've talked to who's done it, it's more like there's like a smidge of yoga in there, and then most of the time you're just like
playing with the
pictures,
and playing with the goats,
getting pooped on.
Oh no! Okay, I'm probably not gonna do goat yoga.
Honestly, some of the goats, I'm like, if they're really tiny and cute, like that would be fun. But some of them look way too big, and I'm like, I don't want them climbing on me.
Yeah, I know. And with the whole going back to like some classes have music. Do you think yoga's better like if they play not calming music but more like upbeat music? Kind of like I've gone to some where it's like hip hop.
So that's really fun because I actually don't play any music now when I teach.
Oh, you don't?
I don't. So I'm one of the few people who does that. I'm probably the only person in this studio who does that. But I really I like to talk to people about the postures they're doing. I do a lot of cueing, but I also like to throw in some philosophy here and there. So I spend a lot of the time like talking during my class, but I also want people to focus on like their breathing and being able to hear their breath. And when you're in a room full of people who are all breathing like with the ujjayi breath, it's actually really magical, and it has an energy that you can feel and hear. Like it's so I don't play music, but I actually, when I first started teaching, I started doing, I used to do deep house yoga.
Yay!
With like a live DJ, and like they had me hooked up to a microphone, and like the DJ would just like do his thing, and we would do a flow to it, and like I think that's great. I think it's fun. There's something about like a led class versus self-led, which is another thing, but when you're in a led class and you have music, I definitely think like live music, especially like either a live DJ or like a live musician, is like it adds to the energy in the room.
Oh yeah.
Like especially live, but I don't think it has to be live to do that. But like I've gone to Wanderlust, which is like a yoga festival.
Oh yeah.
I went to that up in Tahoe a couple years ago. Actually, it's been quite a few years now, but they had like a live guitarist band and like a girl partner who was just like leading this yoga class with the person playing music, and like it was really powerful. And then you know the DJs and stuff, I think that's really fun. It's really great, and depending on the music that you kind of resonate with or vibe with, I think it can really like enhance your experience as far as like either helping you find that meditative state or just like helping you relax and really get comfortable. And I don't know why that light is flashing. Hopefully it stops. Strobe light.
Someone's here. Someone's
like,
here.
Okay. But yeah, so I think one of the hardest things though when like as a teacher, like picking music to play is really hard for me, because I want something that adds to the experience but doesn't take away from it and become distracting. So it's funny because like one time when I was first teaching, like I had this kind of like acoustic Spanish playlist, and I thought, oh, this is great. Who speaks Spanish?
It's very calming. It's very calming.
Yeah, and like nobody knows what they're saying. But obviously then I was, you know, I had some Spanish speakers in my class, and luckily like there was nothing offensive like in the lyrics
music
or anything, and they actually were like, oh, like I love that artist, blah, blah, blah. Like it was good, but you run the risk of, you know, like offending people or like taking away from their experience depending on oh my god, that light. Depending on what music is playing. I have one friend, his name is David Vandermeer, who teaches over at True Fusion.
I've heard his name so many times. I don't know why. I've seen it on like Instagram. Anyway, sorry. There's just
he's a great guy. I love him. He teaches at True Fusion up in Summerlin, and I highly recommend his classes. They will kick your butt. He is really good about making me feel like I.
Is it like advanced yoga?
It's mixed levels, but he definitely, I think he plays more for advanced people. but that's not to say you can't like play safely in his class if you are a beginner. But he always had really great playlists, and he often like asked me for music to contribute to his playlist. But like I remember one time taking his class, he had like a Radiohead playlist, and like I love Radiohead, so I was like, this is really cool, and I was like jamming out. And
but you were like kind of like distracted.
yeah, it's definitely like a different yoga experience. So now that I'm kind of biased and very much into the Ashtanga like
Traditional yoga,
most days I don't practice with music, but some days when I'm just really not feeling it, like I will put on headphones and just like move. Like I remember one time I just like had The Weeknd playing in my head.
Nice.
Yeah, it was just like not yogi at all, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like sometimes you need music to tune out everything. So I don't even know that I was listening to it, but it helped me to get in my
zone.
In my
your
space.
zone.
And I think music can be very powerful in helping people get into that right mindset or that right energy. So I think, you know, it's also very obvious when you have a teacher who has a really great playlist and that like flows and like
they just have it down. Yeah.
And then somebody who is, you know, maybe not so great at their music selection and it's kind of choppy or like jumps from one thing to the other and it like is distracting. It's like, oh, what is happening now?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's really powerful. But also, so like chanting and stuff, like I don't know if you have ever experienced chanting. So it wasn't until I went to Wanderlust, like I think I'd been doing yoga 2 or 3 years before I went to Wanderlust, and I'd never really been into like the chanting. Like I thought that was some hippie yogi thing, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning of my yoga journey, I was very much only into like the physical aspect, and like it kind of helped my, you know, anxiety and like my mental state, but I wasn't like really into any of the spiritual or
the spiritual stuff.
Like, I was completely like not there yet. So when I went to Wanderlust, that's when I really experienced the power of like chanting and just like the Om, the universal sound.
Yeah.
When you have like hundreds of people oming at the same time, like it's really amazing. Like it's magical.
Oh, I want to experience that.
Yeah, it's really
man,
cool.
That sounds amazing. Just thinking about it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, it's like obviously there's the audible, but like you can physically feel like the vibrations.
Oh,
the
yeah.
energy. So it's really powerful, and that I think that moment is when I was like, oh shit, like
you're like, oh, there's some powerful, there's some
like,
powerful stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think there's, you know, something to this chanting thing. So and then I had to like I do the opening and closing Ashtanga mantras for my students usually, and a lot of them have been working with me to learn it. So that's kind of fun, but it's, you know, also kind of a musical aspect to it. Mantras, chanting of mantras and mantras in general are just things that you can like repeat. For those of you who don't know what mantras are.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's a mantra?
There's tons and tons of mantras. A lot of, you know, like the yoga ones are in Sanskrit, but you don't have to necessarily chant them in Sanskrit. You can find translations or even just like words or phrases that you want to repeat, because words have power, like chanting has power, and it's kind of like the manifestation of an energy in like word form or sound form. So very, very powerful stuff, but that's again like another aspect of yoga that a lot of people aren't in tune with. So there's actually it's called kirtan, Kirtan.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it before, but I don't know what it is.
It's pretty much like chanting, and like the chanting aspect of yoga. A lot of people have, I think it's called a harmonium. It's like a little like accordion / keyboard thing. I've never seen that before. So if you ever go to a kirtan session or like see a yoga person chanting, they have like either a harmonium, I think that's what it's called, don't quote me, but that or like the drums, the steel pan drums.
Oh, the hand pans?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
cool.
love those.
Or like sound bowls too. So the crystal sound bowls are really, really cool. And those are all kind of different types of, or tools rather, that kind of help you to get...
Like elevates your experience.
Right.
Yeah.
It helps you kind of get into like a meditative state. So if you've never like chanted before, like it's powerful on its own, like if you can get into the zone and like get to that place, but in a group setting, it's like really great. It's kind of like, you know, an orchestra, like you have one instrument playing by itself is, you know, beautiful, but like when you have it amplified by like so many more players, instruments, it's like, it completely changes the game.
Man.
And I think that's the same thing with chanting and that type of yoga.
I want to go to Wanderlust.
You know, I think it's funny because that's actually, it's a very stereotypical, like, westernization of yoga.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I had a really great time and I recommend it to people.
Yeah.
So, like, there's lots of, I don't want to be that person, but there's lots of, like, wealthy white women at yoga festivals. And as a person who has really never been like a wealthy yoga practitioner, like part of my reason for teaching yoga is to like help, and like offering free classes and stuff like that is to help make it more accessible to people who can't afford it. And sorry, this is kind of political, I guess, we're on a rant, but
okay.
Wanderlust is very much like it's kind of expensive. It's kind of like a Coachella or something where you have to buy this ticket that's, you know, up there in prices, like AC or something. And I actually went as a volunteer, so that's another option for people. If you volunteer, you get like a free day pass, so that's kind of how I experienced it. And like when you're done with your volunteer shift, you can also attend the festival and things like that. So it was fun, and actually I think if I ever go again, I'll probably just be a volunteer because it also adds to the experience.
Because you also get to help. You get to help with the experience and then also have an experience of your own.
Exactly. But there is, you know, very much like, it was almost a little bit ironic because they had like a big kind of rave party night thing at night, but then they'd have like, you know, 7 or 8 a.m. yoga classes. And it was just like, to me, like I've never really been into partying a whole lot or drinking a whole lot. So like when I was there, I was like, I'm not going to drink alcohol.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not going to party and then do yoga in the morning.
Exactly.
I want sleep.
Exactly. I mean, it was up at Tahoe and like higher elevation yoga, like, oh my God, that's hard.
Oh yeah, how does that affect you? Like it's harder to breathe, right?
It is. It just makes everything a little bit more difficult. Like at that point when I went, I was in pretty good shape and like doing yoga regularly, but it made it even harder.
Yeah,
for sure. So,
I bet.
By the end of the day, like I wanted to pass out, so I wasn't even thinking about partying. But then I just thought that was a little bit, you know, it's
the
weird.
ironic,
It's ironic that like people are up really late, like getting wasted, and then like trying to get up early to take yoga classes.
Yeah.
Like one. Yeah, it's just like you're not supposed to be hungover when you do yoga.
And then you can smell it when
you
you sweat.
Smell it.
Well, we're already at the 52-minute mark.
Oh,
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
is there anything, I know you mentioned before that you like to, you know, spit in some philosophy every now and then in your yoga classes. So what's one thing that you would like to say that you say in your classes?
So I think I talked a little bit about like vinyasa being the pairing of movement with breath, and I think that's kind of essential to any person looking to practice yoga. So even if you practice at home or you go to a led class or you know work on your own, it's just important to listen to your body. So vinyasa is really that pairing of movement with breath. So when you inhale, really try to think about what it is your body's doing, and when you're exhaling, like really try to just be mindful of where you're at. But I think one kind of tidbit, it's not really philosophy, I would recommend a posture to somebody, anybody really, is legs up against the wall. So you can rest with your legs like straight up, just lying on your back on the floor. Or you can move like to a wall and rest with your legs up against the wall. That's a really great posture for anybody. It allows the counterflow of blood and lymph in the body, so it allows gravity to push down on the blood and the lymph, which is kind of your waste removal system. So it clears toxins from the body. When we spend most of our day upright, you know, gravity's pushing down on us. It kind of just gives your body a moment to be in a different place, to kind of relax. It's a very restful position. It allows you to kind of just and hang out for a little bit.
Cool. Is it weird if I asked you to demonstrate it? Or?
The legs up the wall?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Oh, but I have to hold your thing.
Okay.
I'm a visual person, so I was like, as I was listening to you, I was like, yeah, sure. I can't really picture it right
like
now.
that, my legs are frozen right here. So you can just move to a wall. I like to get like the side of my butt to the like wall, and then I just swing my legs up.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was
really
easy enough.
Yeah. And you can just hang out here, and it feels really nice. For anybody who like is a waiter or you're on your feet all day, this is a great pose to just kind of sit and chill out in for a little bit. If you're stressed or feeling anxious, this is also a really good pose to just hang out in. And even if you're fine, you can just hang out here, and it's good for your body.
Cool. I'm going to go do that tonight.
Look at myself back up. All right.
Here's your microphone pack. All right. Well, where can we find you online?
Online. Okay, so my handle is Namaste Traveler on Facebook, Instagram, and I think those are the only two I'm on.
Cool.
So you can find me there. You can find me physically here at Sun City Yoga.
Like, can we go on Sun City Yoga and like find you on their website?
Yeah, so you can check out the schedule for the studio online. It's all online as far as the class descriptions, who's teaching, and when we're teaching. And I have it on my website too, which is also namastetraveler.com.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask, like, I swear you have a website.
I always forget about it. Yes, I do have a website.
Yay, okay, and all of that will be in the description below, plus her yoga video, her Sun Salutations video. I know you don't like to put that out there,
Oh,
but
no, you can put it out
just
there.
for anyone who's,
Check it out.
been following us, and thank you for listening, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, is there any last words you'd like to say before I end the podcast?
No, thank you for having me.
Yay.
It's a pleasure.
Yay, I'm glad. See, it wasn't that bad. She was
No,
nervous
I was
earlier.
nervous.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Make sure to follow and subscribe and like all the jazz. And yeah, until next time. Bye.
Bye.